That is a whole step below the root. And that's the magic of the Mixolydian right there. That's the characteristic sound. Let's talk about how you can kind of construct a riff and maybe what the difference between riffs and chord progressions are. What is the difference between a riff and a chord progression? It's kind of a little gray area, I think. A lot of people haven't thought about that distinction. A riff is kind of a nice little happy medium between a melody and a chord progression. Something like a Black Sabbath. Heaven and Hell, right? Imagine if someone was playing that, say, on like an acoustic guitar. Something like this, right? And then especially this part, they're like, yeah, it would be stupid. You know, having that kind of a rapid da-da-da-da chord change. It's too much sonically compressed into too small of a time. People don't go. It just sounds stupid. Unless you're playing jazz and then it's like you're fucking, genius or something, right? This could also be a melody. Right? But then it's kind of too wussy. The power chord works so well because it's sort of right in the middle. It's beefy enough to sort of function as a chord progression, but it's sort of lithe enough, where you can kind of move around quickly and it's not dense, like playing a whole crap load of chords. Riffs can also be single notes. Here's the good. ZZ Top. Something like that. That's more based on a scale. So how do we write a riff that still sounds modal? Sort of sounding almost like a chord progression, but not quite, kind of like power chords. Let's talk about Mixolydian. How about? Let's say we're going to be doing E Mixolydian, where you would ask yourself, what major scale has E as the fifth note? Because it's annoying to have to think through 5 notes. You got that. That's the top note. That means you're down a fifth. Okay, so that's a very guitar practical kind of a way to do that. You just take whatever your modal note is, in this case E, you make it the top note of a power chord, the higher note of the power chord. Bam! That means you automatically have now jumped down a fifth. So we're dealing with the notes in an A major scale. And we're going to make sort of a blend where it's not explicitly a chord progression necessarily. Going to leverage the characteristic note of the mode and perhaps do a little bit of movement with chords, but they won't be full chords. Here's E Mixolydian. Do you remember what the characteristic note of E Mixolydian is, or Mixolydian in general?
I know the chords that make it stand out are 1, 5, and 7, right?
Very good. Let's break that down. Why, though? Use your ears here right now. Here is an E major scale. Here's Mixo. Well, they both sound pretty similar to a major scale, right? Well, I mean, obviously that's stupid. The major scale is the major scale. But the Mixolydian sounds very close to the major scale. Yeah. Pay attention to the 7th note here. That's major. Here's Mixo, 7th note. That is a whole step below the root. And that's the magic of the Mixolydian right there. That's the characteristic sound. Whole step below versus half step below. Here's major, yadam. Here's Mixo, da-bum. Gonna circle this one. We're gonna call this our characteristic note, because it distinguishes that from what we're more used to hearing, which would be the major scale. If we use our Roman numeral stuff, the important chords here for our purposes are going to be this, the B minor, and this, the D major. Why? Because B minor has which 3 notes in it? What are the notes here in a B minor?
B, D, and G, or F.
Yes, there you go. F sharp. Good. Okay, B, D, F sharp. How about the D major chord?
D, F sharp, and A.
Cool. What's the commonality between those two?
The F sharp.
There's another one as well.
D, yeah.
D, very good, yes.
The D is the operative note here, though, because that's our characteristic sound, right? If I play an E, okay, if I drone that E, I play the E against it. That D really comes across. So if you're playing the chords that contain the note D, you're gonna get that sense. I know that the E may not constantly be droning all the time, but your listener is going to hear that E major is the main chord, and so part of their mind, part of their ear, when they hear the D, they're of course going to be relating that back to that E major chord, the note E. So therefore, yes, if you have the chords, that's a major, geez. D major, B minor, that's a very Mixolydian chord progression. So how do we kind of, let's say, turn that into more of a riff? We can do that by stripping down the chords. If I'm playing for my E, let's say I'm substituting for my full E major chord, I'm just going to do the major third, the E and the G sharp. And I'll play my open E like that. That gives you enough, of course, of the sense of the major sound, because it's a major third. If I do this, right there, outlining the E major chord, okay, if I throw in the note D right away, and I do something like this, a little hammer, okay, I just have the D, I'm hammering into the E again. So I put that together so far. Right away, that's not really a chord change per se. It's mostly the E major sound, but we're using that D as like a key ingredient. Why don't you try that? I'm gonna show you what I'm doing here. The G sharp, so I'm on the D string 6th fret. I'm just hitting that, holding it, and then I'm hitting the open E string.
Good.
I'm simply moving away from that. I suppose if we even wanted to, we could use the middle finger and kind of just leave it like that. And then we could use the first and the ring finger to do a little hammer from 5 to 7, D to E.
Good.
Now I'm just adding a little rhythm, right? That's you could put whatever you want. I'm just doing a little grace note from basically a half step behind it. Gives it a little character, right? Let's say that we want to outline or just give a little bit of a taste of a chord progression. We could kind of change our lower note here, let's say, which right now is E, to any of the notes in the scale. But I'm going to intentionally go to a B because that, the B minor is kind of one of our prominent chords for E mixo, as we were talking about before. So if I do something like this, I'll change to this, okay? Maybe I'll keep this idea. I'm still doing D to E here, but I'm moving it up the octave. Okay, so now I'm on the G string here, 7th fret D to 9th fret E. But I'm moving my first finger to the B, which is on the 7th fret. So I'm going to do a little bar kind of action here. Take your first finger, kind of just bar the 7th fret, as well as now if you're hitting this, you could go and hit the G string and try a little hammer. So you still have that D, but now suggested a chord change without doing a full chord change, because we've changed our lowest note to a B. If we had something like that, that's definitely more of a riff. Does that make sense? Versus, it's clearly not just going strum, big chord change where everything changes. Okay, it's this in between where you have some interesting movement, because we are suggesting that chord change by hitting the B, but we're keeping our characteristic sound there, the D to the E. Major scale doesn't come into the equation unless you're using your A major fingerings, right? Which is good to do with the riff. Okay, so that's always, remember, more of a practical thing, because if you had a little lick or something you wanted to throw in, say I'm doing this, you want a little filler. Well, knowing that this right here is an A, that finger pattern, right? That finger pattern. Okay, that could give you some nice kind of filler. It allows you to not just be random or hunting and pecking. Makes it more accessible for you to try out different notes, because ultimately they're all pretty much going to work, right? So then it's just a matter of, hey, process of elimination in a sense, or just trying some things until you find something that you like. And if you wanted to do something that was a little closer to a chord progression, but again more rock, you could use power chords. So we could have maybe this for the E. Maybe if we want to go to the D major, I substitute that, right? Or major third. So yeah, there's a little bit of chord change when I'm really going from, that kind of a sound, but it's still rock. It's not a full chord change. Again, if I didn't have that D to E happening a lot, it's not really going to sound Mixolydian. And importantly, that G sharp is, essential, I guess, is because if I didn't have the G sharp, this wouldn't be suggesting an E major sound, right? Because there are a lot of scales that do have E, say, as the root, and then a D to an E. Minor scale has that, Dorian scale has that, Phrygian has that. So many scales have that. So no other scale, though, is going to have the major one chord, in this case, E major, and then the D to the E. As long as we're talking about modes, there's some outlying kind of, exotic sort of scales out there. So the G sharp, that little major, it is important to introduce that, pretty quickly into the mix, so that you're giving people the sense of the Mixolydian sound. Really good way to think about modes is, at first, if we sort of have like a funnel or a filter, the first thing to do is to put them into two buckets, which you could think of as major-ish or minor-ish. They're either going to have a major third or a minor third, because that's the essence of what we tend to hear is like major versus minor when people use those words. And so you have two buckets. The major-ish sounding ones are going to be obviously the major scale, and then Lydian and Mixolydian. And then the minor-ish ones that have the minor third are going to be the rest. Obviously Dorian, Phrygian, Aeolian, which is just minor, and Locrian. So those are the first two kind of, let's say, filters. That way, when you hear something and it strikes you as more of a majory, sort of happy-ish kind of a sound, you can rule out all four of those other modes. But yes, then within that, the next kind of like part of the funnel is certainly each of those is going to have its own unique difference from the major or the minor scale. That's why I call it the characteristic note, because Lydian, right? Major-ish, but that's the deviation, right? That fourth note. So that's distinctly different from the Mixolydian, where the deviation is the seventh note.